If I have a white canvas for you, like this, and I ask you to draw your mental state now, what would you draw?
Oh, bro, these are good questions, man. That is a great question. So I've often said I don't know if you've ever come across one of my friends, Humble the Poet. So Humble the Poet is a speaker and writer. He's a good friend of mine. And the reason I'm thinking of it is because he's probably the only person I've had this conversation with. So I try and design my studio and my office to look like my mind. So I literally have said that before, that I try and design spaces that I live in my home, my studio, my office, all of it, to look like my mind. I like to live in mental spaces. And I like to feel like I've taken a vision out of here and built it around me. And so if I took you into my office now back in LA, or I took you into my studio or my study or whatever it may be, you would find I would draw a lot of bookshelves and I would draw a lot of books. And the reason for that is because I feel for so long I wasn't a reader. So when I was growing up, my parents were really scared that I wasn't going to be that smart because I didn't read. And I didn't read up until the age of 14. And the reason was because school only gave us fiction books. And I was never interested in fiction. I wasn't interested in a made-up story or a made-up character. It didn't touch me. It didn't move my heart. And then at 14, my dad started to give me autobiographies and biographies. And so that time I read Malcolm X, I read Martin Luther King, I read David Beckham, I read Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Like, I was reading this complete gamut of people and their lives. And I found that studying people's lives has been the greatest investment of my life. Because when you study people's lives, you start realizing how similar your life experience is to so many people when it comes to failure, when it comes to rejection, when it comes to setback. So I would draw a lot of books and bookshelves. You would have Steve Jobs' book, you'd have Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you'd have David Beckham and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and a bunch of others. The next thing I'd do is I like having statements or mantras or affirmations around me, because I really believe that we don't use visual cues enough to change our mindset. What I mean by that is, when I walked into your space today, which is really like, your space is beautiful. Like, it's so minimal and simple and like it calms the mind. Like, as soon as I walked into your studio today, I was like, oh, this is my vibe. I like this, right? Everyone seems like they're really happy in their spaces. But I find that because of the environment, it also creates an energy, right? Internally. So I walked in here, I feel a certain way. And I feel that when I walk into my home and my spaces, I also like putting up either art or lines of wisdom or insight that help me lock back into where I want to be. So I have this one piece of art in my office that I'll send you a picture of so you can put it in the edit if you want to help it. And it's a picture of, okay, I'm going to try to describe this if it's a bit complicated to describe, but do you remember as a kid, I don't know if you had them, I guess you had them all over the world, but there were these little machines that would be outside the supermarket and you put a little coin in it and it'd be like a little space machine and it would like move like from side to side, right? Okay, I don't know what they're called, but you know what I'm talking about. So this artwork has one of those little space machines, like it looks like you'd have to put a little coin in it, but then there's a person sitting inside the space machine, but they're dressed as an astronaut. So it's like this little kid space machine, but an astronaut is like riding this little space machine. And then in the background, there's all these different prints from musicians and songwriters, everyone from Elton John through to other artists that are less well known. And there's a beautiful lyric on one of them underneath the music notes. And it says, "May God's love be with you, lift off." And I bought that piece of artwork because there's so many messages inside of it. So every time I look at it, I remember that I'm just a kid putting a coin into a machine, trying to get to space. I'm trying to do something quite outlandish, ridiculous. I believe that I want to be able to do something phenomenal in the world, but actually I'm just a little kid trying to figure it out, you know? I'm just a student of life. And at the same time, I'm like that astronaut who has this big vision and can see the solar system and wants to be curious about the world that's around them. And at the same time, at the end of the day, I'm fueled and living at the grace of God, the universe, of the energy that I've been given through the people I've met, and that I need their grace in order to do this work. So that art piece is what I would try and draw, but it would be terrible because I can't draw to save my life.
Nice.
So I would have to, I'll send you the picture.
Please.